check out our streaming schedule for this week. We've got tons of content in terms of the NFL and college football, as we're going live just about every single day this week. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment where we go live. And now, on with our feature presentation. I don't think it's any secret that I, like most fans of the Jacksonville Jaguars, are not excited about the current state of affairs with the team. Shocker, I know. After an 8-3 start in 2023, the Jaguars proceeded to drop 5 of their final 6 games, and then started this season off with a 1-4 record, thanks in part to absolutely inept coaching on the part of Doug Peterson. Heck, there are even some reports that Peterson has lost the locker room completely. I don't think it's a surprise that I'm not the biggest fan of Doug Peterson, including but not limited to his insistence on Press Taylor calling the plays, his ability to manage a game, his inability to take the points in obvious positions, and the countless dumb decisions he has made over the years, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Yeah, things could be going a heck of a lot better in Jacksonville, and I think that goes without saying. However, I want you to imagine that I, a random fan, go through a Jaguars game and express my frustrations to the players on the team themselves. No, I'm not talking about bringing a sign, or booing, or chanting something. I'm talking about physically running onto the field, entering the huddle, and straight up telling the team, I love you guys. This isn't your fault. The coach absolutely stinks. Doug Peterson needs to go. Literally, I run onto the field not because I want to streak, or because I'm drunk, or I want to get that thrill, or anything along those lines. I run onto the field to try and have a conversation with the team about the current state of affairs. Something like that would seem absolutely absurd, right? Obviously, I get kicked out of the game and would be arrested and barred from going to any future games. But on top of that, there is no chance I could make it to the huddle, right? No chance I could not only get into the huddle, but engage in a conversation long enough of any substance and any value. However, if you do want something of substance and value, and you want to learn more about the history of the NFL, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do on this channel, as we post videos every single day about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. Well, I bring that insane hypothetical scenario up, which I'm obviously not going to do, because as ridiculous as that might sound, that's exactly what happened in 1979 during this game right here. When the San Francisco 49ers took on the Seattle Seahawks during Week 6 of the 1979 season, a fan was fed up with the performance of his 49ers, and he decided to give the team a little piece of his mind with what went wrong. And to say that this fan went about it in an unconventional way would be putting it extremely lightly. Because this is the story behind one of the craziest fan incidents in the history of the San Francisco 49ers, and quite possibly the history of the NFL. Before I talk about the incident in question, we need some context to understand just how bad the San Francisco 49ers were on one particular side of the ball. To say that the 1979 season started off rough for the 49ers would be putting it lightly, as in their first season under the guidance of head coach Bill Walsh, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, he definitely had his work cut out for him. 5 games into the season, and the 49ers were already out of it, sitting ugly with an 0-5 record, and looking like, quite possibly, the worst team in football. That playoff drought of theirs, which had gone back to 1972, wasn't going to be ending anytime soon. No team had even come close to simming the playoffs after an 0-5 start, and barring a miracle and a couple of meteor strikes across the league, the Niners were dead in the water. Now, offensively, the team was not terrible by any means. In fact, there were multiple teams who had a winning record despite scoring fewer points through 5 games than the Niners did. San Francisco had scored 89 points after 5 games, averaging just a hair under 18 points per game. Of the 14 teams in the NFC, this ranked 7th, so by no means was this bad. But defensively, oh god, that defense. Yeah, there's a reason that this team right here started 0-5, because everything about this defense was ugly with a capital U. 5 games into the season, and the 49ers had what was undoubtedly the worst defense in the NFC, as they allowed a whopping 137 points, or 27.4 points per game. The defense was so bad that they allowed 21 or more points in each of their first 5 games, including over 30 points in back-to-back games entering the clash against the Seahawks. That's the focal point of the video. One of those games was an opening day loss to the Minnesota Vikings, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. How bad was the 49ers defense to start off 1979? At the time, since the NFL-AFL merger, they were one of just 6 teams to allow 21 or more points in each of their first 5 games. If you want to know how I found out that stat, it was made possible through StatHead, the sponsor of today's video. StatHead is a tool that I've used for a while now that gives you access to everything NFL data history related right at your fingertips. All I did was go to the Team Game Finder, click on Teams with most games in a season matching criteria, set the time frame from the merger to 1979, as in the time of this video, then change the span of games filter to just show the first 5 games, and change the statistical filters to show games with 21 points allowed. This means that I'm searching for the number of games over the first 5 weeks of a season over the 1970s that a team allowed 21 or more points. And just like that, you get your data, and you can click on each individual game in question. None of this footage was sped up. It's that quick and that easy to use. If you use my code JG9, you get 20% off an annual subscription, so sign up for StatHead today. And thanks to StatHead for sponsoring today's video. Having said that, you get the idea. This defense was awful, and after a 1978 season, where the team ranked 23rd in the league in points allowed out of 28 teams, the 1979 season was shaping up to be an even worse campaign. But maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to right the ship against the Seattle Seahawks during this game right here. Maybe they could find a way to get their first win of the season, snap their 5-game losing streak, and snap their skid where, dating back to the end of the 1977 season, they had lost a whopping 22 out of 24 games. So we head to Candlestick Park for what was, at the time, an inter-conference battle between the Seattle Seahawks, who had a bottom 5 offense in the AFC, and the San Francisco 49ers, which seemed like a battle on paper between a completely stoppable force and a completely movable object. Oddly enough, I've talked about this game before in a previous video of mine, as a while ago, I talked about how the game was delayed by an hour, starting at 5 o'clock Eastern instead of 4 o'clock Eastern, with no one, not one single person, knowing the reason why this was the case. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But just like that last video, the outcome of this one is exactly the same in terms of the final result, because when all was said and done, in the battle between 2 teams with a combined record of 1-9 entering the day, the Seattle Seahawks prevailed, taking it by a final score of 35-24. San Francisco's defense, as we've already established, was awful all season. But on this day, they were particularly awful, allowing their highest point total of the season. Even if we say that the Niners allowed 28 points instead of 35, seeing as one of the touchdowns came off of a 91-yard pick six by Sammy Green in the third quarter, it's still not good, no matter how you want to slice it. The Seahawks never trailed at any point. The Seahawks never turned it over at any point. They scored a touchdown on each of their first 2 drives and on 3 of their first 4 drives of the game, and they were in complete control the entire time. In the first half alone, the Seahawks had over 100 yards rushing and 216 yards of offense, with just 1 throw being incomplete. By the time the game was done, the Seahawks had over 300 yards of offense with nearly 5 yards a carry and 4 rushing touchdowns. Seattle had their struggles offensively at times in 1979. In one game a few weeks later against a different NFC West team, they would lose 24-0 to the Rams by picking up 1 first down the entire game, having negative 30 net passing yards the entire game, and having negative 7 yards of offense. Yes, you heard that right. They had a game with negative offensive yardage. So the fact that the 49ers allowed 35 to this team and let them have their way, especially after the Seahawks were coming off of an outing against the Kansas City Chiefs the week before where they only scored 6 points, should tell you just how bad that San Francisco defense was. It was that bad. And much like before, in all honesty, the 49ers offense was not bad. It really wasn't. It's tough to fault San Francisco's offense a lot for this performance, because they managed to accumulate 29 first downs and 464 yards of total offense. Granted, a fair amount of that came in the fourth quarter when the game was well and truly decided, but still, when you have nearly 500 yards of offense, I'm not sure that side of the ball deserves a ton of blame. It's like blaming the bats for being cold in baseball in a game where you scored 7 runs. More often than not, it's tough to blame the offense for that. And I bring that up because one fan wanted to let the offense know that it was not their fault. He wanted to let the offense know that he had nothing but love for them, that they played well, and that this loss, it would be their 23rd in their last 25 games, was on the defense and was on how the roster was constructed, since the team was completely bare on the defensive side of the ball. And this fan didn't do this with a sign, or with a message on a shirt, or by chanting something, or with a paper bag over his head. Oh no, not even close. This fan did something ridiculous that could only happen in the 1970s, because there is not a chance in the world that anything like this would happen today, and for good reason. Here's the situation. There's barely any time left in this game. It's 35-17 in favor of the Seahawks at this point, and we've got a timeout on the field as the Niners look to get a touchdown late just to get something to build off of. Most of the fans have left at this point, and understandably so. It was already a sparse crowd at Candlestick Park, with fewer than 45,000 fans attending the matchup, well below what a sellout would be. And of the fans that were there at the start, most of them were long gone in an effort to beat the traffic, since this game was already a late start compared to the traditional 1 o'clock game for some bizarre reason. And during this timeout, when all the fans were gone, or at least most of them, one of the fans, and one of the few faithful who decided to stick this one out, decided to do something rather bizarre. Take a look and see if you can spot it.
49ers come off the loss in San Diego last week, 31-9. And their 4 previous defeats, if that's any consolation at all, were closer. But I tell you, when you're 0-6, you're dying, no matter what the scores.
That's right.
Death.
See the guy that came out of the end zone in a tan t-shirt and khakis? See the guy that's jogging over to the Niners huddle? That is not a coach, that is not a trainer, and that is not an official of any kind. That is, quite literally, a fan. A fan by the name of Steve Foreman entered the 49er huddle and proceeded to try and have a conversation with the offensive players. At no point do you see any security guard come onto the field. At no point do you even see any effort from any security personnel to enter. This fan was just somehow able to do this and stay in the huddle for a solid 20 seconds before being escorted off the field by the referees. Right before the camera cuts away to a crowd shot, maybe because they only then realized what was happening and realized that there was literally a fan on the field in the huddle, the fan was being escorted out by the referees. He was on the field for a solid 30 seconds, just doing whatever the heck he wanted to do. Which raises the question, why the heck did Foreman enter the field? What was his motive? He was there to, in a weird way, provide encouragement by telling the team that the offensive side of the football is good, but the defensive side sucks. Tell them something they don't know, Steve. As Foreman said after shaking hands with wide receiver Freddie Solomon, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, I told the team I love them, and the offense is great, but that former general manager Joe Thomas traded away all our defense. And it's not as though this was a shocking revelation to the players. Head coach Bill Walsh even said as much on the defense and how thin they were, especially when compared to the offense, saying, offense, you can find ways to move the ball. On defense, the other team knows what you have and don't have. But for a fan to come out onto the field and say that to the players by literally entering their huddle? Yeah, I don't know what's crazier. The fact that he did it, or the fact that security did not even make a single attempt to stop him. Did they even have security at this game? Honestly, did they? Because I didn't see one security guard during that entire exchange at any spot on the field. And I thought the security at Disco Demolition Night 2 months before this was bad. The 1970s for you, the freaking 1970s. The bad news for the fan and Steve Foreman after the game between these teams behind me right here is that things would not get better for the rest of the 1979 season. The Niners' offense was actually pretty solid. They ended the year 6th in the league in total yardage, and they were near the middle of the pack in terms of points scored. But defensively, yeah, they were pretty bad. They ended the year with a 2-14 record, tied with the Detroit Lions for the worst record in the NFL, and a big reason why was because their defense allowed 26 points per game, ranking second from the bottom in the NFL. The only team worse than them, at 421 total points compared to the Niners' 416, was, oddly enough, the Cincinnati Bengals. And I say oddly enough because those two teams, 2 years later, would somehow be playing in Super Bowl 16. If you told someone back in 1979 that the team with the worst defense and the second worst defense would be competing in the Super Bowl 2 years from now, I don't think they would have believed you. Look, there are extremely valid ways to get your point across that you want things to change regarding the state of your team. I totally get that. Share displeasure through booing, or through signs, or posts on social media, bags on your head. There are many ways to do this in today's day and age. I don't think that storming the field and trying to enter the huddle to tell the players that the other side of the ball stinks is the most effective way to do it. We have no idea what happened to Steve Foreman after this. Little is known about the man, other than the fact that he was the one to storm the field. But whatever the heck he was thinking during this game, if he was even thinking at all, it was not the smartest idea. I know that much. Because in 1979, while the 49ers had an awful defense on the field, they had an even worse defense when it came to keeping guys off of it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.